Oh, thank you, everyone. And it's my pleasure to be here today representing Hawkesbury to talk through our litter prevention program that we've done over the last few years. Thanks for the introduction, Ron. I've actually been at council for over 11 years, but when I submitted my abstract, I just forgot how long it had been. It's great to follow on from Rupert from the EPA, because our program was largely supported through the New South Wales EPA litter prevention grants, both the development of the strategic documents, but also we've received more funding to implement them. And I don't think the program would be the success without that support, but also the support from all the research that you've just spoken through as well. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the lands that we're on today of the Gumbaga people, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to any traditional owners and Aboriginal people here today. I was actually fortunate enough to come up a day early and do a hike through the Dorrigo National Park, and just appreciate the nature of this country, and it was really beautiful to be able to do that. I'd also like to extend my respects to the traditional custodians of the Hawkesbury, because that's the lands that this is done on, and that's the Darug and Darkinjung people. And I'm really thankful to be able to work on the land that's been cared for thousands of generations before me. For those of you who haven't visited the Hawkesbury before, we have a population of 67,000 residents across an area of 2,800 kilometres square. And so that's actually quite a large area for a small population. It makes us the largest area in metropolitan New South Wales for an LGA. We have a mix of rural and urban communities, with majority of our households being in single detached dwellings. We also have experienced a large amount of natural disasters over the last few years. In 2019 to 2020, we had a catastrophic bushfire season, and that was then followed by 8 consecutive floods, and as many people know, the COVID-19 pandemic that we all had to live through. With about 50% of our residents, 50% of our staff, also being residents, it meant this was we were affected on a personal level as well as a professional level, and a lot of our business as usual had to be put on hold for disaster recovery actions. I had my manager of strategic planning filling up a van with animals from the shelter to try and get them out of the flooding, so it was just really taking on duties that were outside of the normal scope. Given this, it was really important that we made sure that we were being more proactive instead of reactive, and so our approach was then to develop a suite of strategic documents. And over the last few years, we've developed a waste and resource recovery strategy, a sustainability strategy, a landfill management strategy, FOGO transition plan, and a climate change risk assessment and adaptation action plan, just to name a few. And so we did already know the importance of strategic direction to build capacity, but litter prevention wasn't part of our business as usual. In our waste and resource recovery strategy, we did have litter management actions, but not prevention. And so what we really needed to do was shift that focus. We got together, I'm ahead of myself. What we did was we got together with different groups of council. So we had the resource recovery team, our strategic planning team, our waste management team. Sorry, the slide keeps flicking, it's a bit distracting. We also had our compliance team, our assets management team, all together in the room to talk about how could we address litter prevention, because we knew that it wasn't just for waste education. There were so many different aspects of council that would deal with that, and we needed to be working together to come up with a solution. And so what we did was we did form that group together, which slowly grew over time as we realised through engagement that actually there's a lot more sections of council that have to deal with this than we thought. You've got the customer service team, our governance team, our records team, and so it had a lot more areas that needed to be involved. What we did was we researched different opportunities for funding. So at this time, we actually didn't know about the grants when we first met together to discuss it, and then we discovered that there were these litter prevention grants that we could go for. There were 3 different streams, the stream 1 being the small on-the-ground projects, the stream 2 being the capacity building and strategic direction, and then the stream 3 being the own it and act implementation. So at first we actually thought that we would just go for a small on-the-ground project. We thought that we'd apply for the stream 1 grant, And what was great about the expression of interest process is it meant that you actually got to have collaboration with the EPA to make sure that your application was really what was suited to you. So you weren't just applying for what you thought was best, but you got to have that discussion. And so when we met with the EPA and we talked about what our aspirations were, and then there was also showing that cross-council commitment, they suggested that we should really go for a Stream 2 grant to build that strategic capacity. And so we went for a Stream 2 grant to develop a litter prevention plan, a roadmap, and a bin infrastructure business case. So we developed those 3 documents already, and I'll talk through them through the other slides. But last week, the litter prevention plan was just adopted by all our councillors at the council meeting. And we also applied for a Stream 3 grant for $400,000 and were awarded that. So that's really going to assist on the implementation of this project. And it also helps the councillors to know that action is going to start happening straight away because we've got the funds to do that. So I just want to talk quickly through this because this was part of the way that we worked more in a collaborative approach rather than just one officer. Because in the past, when we would have filled out something like this, which was part of the grant that you had to do this to understand what your capacity was and where there was room to grow, usually we would just get one staff member to complete this, and it would be from the perspective of one person of where we were. But our consultant recommended that what we should actually do is get everybody that has anything to do with litter prevention in council to complete it. And then when the results came out, it was a reflection of where everyone felt we sat, not just one staff member or one team. And so where we did really well was our sharing and learning. And I think part of this is through the regional litter prevention plan that we've done with Wesrock and worked on with Wesrock and other councils. However, this is from the start, by the way, so this is before we developed any of the documents where we were. So our targets and actions and internal collaboration were okay, but where we really lacked was our track record, our ownership, support, our understanding and monitoring and evaluation, because we really didn't collect any data. Our external collaboration, vision, appetite were all sort of a bit lower, and I think even just through developing these strategic documents, these areas have all already increased because we now have a better understanding of litter as well, and that was through the research that we did throughout this project. So I'm not going to talk through all of the engagement because there was quite a lot, but what I want to talk through is more about the collaboration with other teams and the community to get effective engagement. And I'm going to talk about that through our failed engagement, really. So we did 3 surveys, which we sent to all of the schools, we sent to all of the businesses, and we sent to the councillors, and we actually didn't receive any results back from these surveys because they were all done through an email format. And so we could have, I guess, ticked a box and said we tried, but instead we wanted to make sure that we got that engagement because it was important. So we went out to the schools and did a workshop within the school. For the businesses, we utilised our economic development team and went out to a business breakfast at 7 in the morning and did a presentation at the Chambers of Commerce, and then got the businesses to do the survey afterwards. And with councillors as well, had a councillor briefing session so they could really ask questions about the project, and it was a bit more interactive. So we had to change the way that we were engaging because it just wasn't getting the results anymore. For our research and data as well, a lot of it was built on existing data as well, done through Wesrock and done through the New South Wales EPA. And so what we were focusing on more was what is the research and data gaps just for Hawkesbury specifically. One of the things we noticed is that we didn't have any information on our bin infrastructure. The assets team had a little bit of an audit that they had done in the past. Our waste contractor had an audit of some of the public place recycling bins, but we didn't really have a proper audit or have how many bins there were, where they were, what type of bins they were. And so we put those audits together and got our open spaces team to go out into the field and actually validate all that data. And also what was really important was what type of bins we had. And so that bin there is a bit newer in our town centre, and it's got the butt bin on there as well. But a lot of our old bins, I think there were 85 of them, which are these open cradle bins. They're like open on the top, there's no lid, and so litter can easily blow out of it, animals can get in and take litter out of it. And from an open spaces point of view, they have to like physically lift it out to empty it as well. So there's multiple issues with those bins. From our assets team point of view as well, they don't have an ongoing bin fund. It just happens reactively, really, or with grants. And so what would happen is they'd put a new bin in, but not factor the cost of the removal of the old cradle bin. So you'd end up sort of with double infrastructure and keeping all those open cradle bins in. So that was one of the main things that we identified, is that we need to get rid of those open cradle bins, and where there isn't another bin, then replace it with a better bin. So we came up with a bin standard within our bin infrastructure business case, but it also highlights all the different bins we have, where they are, and so that we can use that as we move forward in delivering on our plan. So this is the feedback from the surveys that we did out with communities. And so it was asking them what litter they found. So you'll see it's a bit of a mix of percentage. What this means is they were asked, what litter do you see in the community? And then given all options. So if it says 78%, it means 78% of people ticked that box. So they could tick multiple boxes. What's interesting in seeing these views is that what people put as what they see as litter isn't always the same as what we actually saw when we went out and started counting litter. Like, a lot of people are putting beverage containers, but we would maybe see one across all of our counts. So we were surprised that quite high percentages put beverage containers as what they see. And the council views is quite different in terms of the items compared to what everybody else was saying in their responses. When we actually went out into the field, we found that cigarette butts were the most littered item in the Hawkesbury, which surprised a lot of us because we really didn't notice that there were cigarette butts until now we know that there are. We see them everywhere. The other thing was balloons made up a large percentage in our recreational areas, and with a lot of our parks being near the river, this is quite problematic because that's going to the waterways. So some of the challenges of collaborating, our waste education officer role is a 0.4 full-time equivalent. Resourcing can be quite difficult, and like I mentioned, we have a large LGA but a small population, so you're not really having a huge amount of budget to deliver across that area. Another thing with collaboration is everybody has different opinions and different points of views, so that can make it really hard when you might have a priority and theirs are quite different to yours. But I think for collaboration, the key to that is understanding what their priorities are and seeing how there can be multiple benefits. And so with like the open cradle bins, for example, for us, we don't want the litter, but for them, they might not want the physical work of having to pull it out. And for the assets team, they want consistency or a consistent design that's cheaper. So it's understanding the benefits to them, and when we're telling them about it, actually marketing it in the way that benefits them. Even though we're doing it for litter, we know that that's not their priority, so we need to collaborate effectively, actually look at what they need. So with collaboration, we do this in many different ways. These are sort of my key points to why I think it's important and how to do it. I think it's important to engage everybody, not just the staff that are relevant or not just the organisations that are relevant. At our council, we have this initiative called 10 at 10. So it usually happens once a week or once a fortnight, where for 10 minutes at 10 a.m, somebody from the council will give a 10-minute presentation on a topic that's relevant to them. So at our council, we had Brendan from Wesrock, who's the Regional Litter Prevention Officer, come out and do a presentation on Reporter Tosser, and that was not to litter prevention staff, that was to all of the staff across the organisation. So then a lot of people were coming up afterwards saying, oh, I didn't know about the program, or I never knew you could do that. And so we're actually engaging staff, but also then enabling them when the community asks a question to know about these initiatives and know about these projects. Because often when staff are out in the field or when staff are at events, the community don't see them as whatever their specific role is, they see them as a council worker. And so they'll often get asked questions about anything. So having this sort of program where you're letting everybody know about the initiatives is great. I think reaching out as well, so even if there aren't grants available, reaching out to the New South Wales EPA, reaching out to other councils and asking about what it is that people do or how can we improve our processes. There's still a lot of learning and still a lot of things that can be done even when you don't have funds, but the funds definitely help. Having different formats as well. So like I mentioned, going out by a survey doesn't always work for everyone. Sometimes people really do need face-to-face. Okay, we spoke about that. Executive support is also really important. So if you are doing cross-council collaboration and working across multiple teams, you then have multiple managers and different directorates sometimes as well. So you want to gain their support because essentially it's their staff that you want to engage with. So you can scan the QR code if you'd like to view the litter prevention plan, but you can also type it in on Google and it would come up because it was at our council meeting last week. I'm not going to go through the plan because we just don't have enough time, but the key things about the plan is that we want to get the basics right at our council. Before this, we were just doing litter management and not prevention. So this is really about understanding how we are now going to be getting the basics of prevention right. We want to have a shared commitment, and that's not just between council, but with other councils, with the community, with businesses, and getting everybody on board, because sometimes that's more powerful when the community members are champions. And I think I watched one of the Good for the Hood Joe Toronto presentations the other day, and she was saying how if somebody is engaged, you want to keep them engaged because otherwise they can end up being your enemy. So in the community, if there is somebody that's engaged, having a way to continue that excitement and that want to work with council. And then the last one is council litter prevention action. So us actually acting as leaders and setting an example. And that can be done in several ways. For us, even me and another staff member sometimes just go out and pick up litter in our lunch break. And I know that's management and not prevention, but the conversations you have with the community, even though they don't know that we're council staff, they will start giving you feedback and saying, oh, wow, I can't believe there's litter when there's bins right there. Or you're starting to get feedback even though you're not doing proper engagement. So moving forward, up here on the screen, these are just the ways that we're going to actually measure how we progress on our plan. And this is really data-driven, so it's understanding how we're getting to those targets, and that's all in our Hawkesbury City Council roadmap for litter prevention. I think one of the things that we were talking about the other day as well is that data doesn't always measure the connection, though, that you have with people and the connection. And internally, a lot of our collaboration has happened because of the connection with other staff members, and you can't always measure that. But how you do know it's successful is that people are doing the project and are working on it with you. And so other teams are willing to work on the project and deliver on it, even if it's outside their scope. Our compliance team actually set up an illegal dumping working group after this project because they saw how well it worked when we were working together. And so they then duplicated that into a different avenue so that we could work together on another thing. So the key learnings that I got is mostly that collaboration is key, that it's important to engage everyone, stepping outside of the business as usual, and I think that's where the innovation comes in when we're trying to think of something that's beyond a survey or trying to think of something that's beyond just cleaning up things. Trying new things falls into that as well. And then the research and the data. So previously we didn't have any data, so we didn't actually know what was in our community. And then you don't know what you're trying to target your messages at. And so understanding that cigarette butts is one of the most littered items in our LGA, that data then supports what we're saying to the community as well, because we were putting up Facebook posts about cigarette butts as part of a Reporter Tosser campaign with Wesrock, and a lot of the comments were saying, oh, nobody smokes anymore, or there aren't any cigarette butts, and we can then say, well, actually, when we go out in the field and count, cigarette butts are the most littered item in the Hawkesbury. So that data then supports the messaging that we're also doing in the community. Thank you.